Audrey Rose feels like a film of two halves. I loved the first half. I kind of really disliked the second half. This was released in 1977. It's directed by Robert Weiss, written by Frank de Felitta, and it's based on the story by Frank de Felitta, and I apologise if I'm mispronouncing that. And we have a cast including Marsha Mason, John Beck, Anthony Hopkins, and Susan Swift. And the Templetons have a young daughter called Ivy, and Hopkins's character Elliot seems to be watching Ivy. And we learn quite quickly that it's because a psychic once told him that his late daughter, Audrey Rose, who died in a car accident, we see this at the start of the film, has been reincarnated as somebody else. And Elliot believes that Ivy is the reincarnation of his daughter, Audrey. And for the first half of the film, as things develop, it is quite interesting. I had no idea what direction it would take. I didn't know where the narrative would go or what would happen with the characters, and I was really keen to find out. And the more we learn about the narrative and where it's heading, the less I enjoyed it. Partly in terms of personal beliefs, and I'll talk about that in a moment, so that's not the film's fault. But also, at the same time, I feel like a lot of people might have a similar belief, and I will share that in a moment. But also, I just found it to be very poorly executed. I don't think Ivy's mother was a very believable character. I don't think the narrative made a lot of sense in terms of its progression. Again, speaking mostly about the second half, the first half's not too bad. The first half is actually quite exciting because it's very unpredictable. But as it develops, the more we learn, the more answers we get, the less I enjoyed it. So for the most part, I just didn't think it was a very good film. A decent concept. I don't think it was very well executed. And one of the main reasons, as I said, is maybe down to personal preference. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. For example, the explanation here is that Audrey died in this accident, and 2 minutes later, Ivy was born, which is true. Ivy was born 2 minutes after the death of Audrey. They find this information out. And I don't know how common this belief was in the 70s, but certainly I think it's a very popular belief now that you are given a spirit before you're born. I know one of the arguments for people who are anti-abortion, which is not the discussion of this, but people who are anti-abortion are so because a baby has a spirit, they have a soul before they're born and they can feel pain because of that. So this idea that she was reincarnated 2 minutes after because her body then went into Ivy's baby body after she was born goes against that belief because Ivy would have already had a spirit before she was born. Again, I don't know if that was the popular belief in the 70s or if it was generally believed that reincarnation happened only once you were born. But certainly watching it now, I know that doesn't work with my belief. And again, I know a lot of people also believe the same, that you have your spirit before you're born. So that meant that I wasn't really buying into the narrative. That's not to say I believe it anyway. I fully believe in reincarnation, but not like this. And I don't think for 1 second that things would develop the way it did in the film. And that's not the issue I have with this, because with this kind of film, it's fun to buy into this kind of more dark and unrealistic aspect. But because the basic elements don't match with my beliefs, it's hard to even believe any aspect of this. But as I said, Ivy's mother, I don't believe her actions. I don't believe her thoughts. I don't think she was a very well-written character. I don't think the narrative in the second half developed in a way that was satisfying or that even made sense within the context of the story. So there are just so many things about this that don't work. And yes, some of it might be down to personal beliefs. But if the rest of it was thrilling and gripping and exciting, I'd overlook that. I'd be okay with that. I generally don't have a problem with that. I love supernatural horror, for example, but while I'm a spiritualist, I don't believe in demonic possession, but I can still absolutely love those films. So I don't need to believe what I'm watching as long as the narrative itself is believable. And I'm just not buying it. I don't think it's very well written. I don't think the characters are very well written. The performances are quite good. The first half, when we have more questions than answers, it's pretty good. As it develops, not so much. So unfortunately, Audrey Rose sounded amazing. The execution is not very good, and I guess I don't recommend it. If you're curious, check it out. It is watchable, but there are too many things that I think don't work very well, and ultimately, I didn't really enjoy it.